Hi class, today we are on Saxon Book 3, Lesson 48, and we're going to be finding fractions and mixed numbers on a number line. So, we'll start with my number line here from 0 to 1. If we're going to find a fraction, we need to be able to split the number line into equal pieces. So we could start that by looking at 0 and 1 and splitting it into 2 equal pieces. So the important thing here is we're looking at the space between our tick marks, not the number of tick marks. So a common mistake that I see is somebody will count tick marks and they'll say 1, 2, 3. Oh, this is thirds. It's not thirds. We're looking at the space from here to here and from there to there, and if you count the spaces, we only have 2 of them, so this would be 1/2. Okay? We can do the same thing with thirds, but we'll take our number line from 0 to 1, and now we'll break it into 3 equal pieces, so approximately right there and right there. So now I've got 0, 1/3, and 2/3. And then once we get over here, this would be 3/3, which is the same thing as 1. So we can count them like this: 1/3, 2/3, 1. Okay? Look at the spaces, not the tick marks. All right, so some examples of what you might see in your homework is you might be given a number line from 0 to 1, and then it's going to have a dot there, and there, and there. And it might tell you to state the fraction that shows each location of A, B, and C. So the first thing you need to do is figure out how many equal parts is this number line broken up into from 0 to 1 whole. So I might count spaces like this: 1, 2, 3, 4. So I know we're talking about fourths. So A here, that's the first fourth. So A is going to be 1/4. B, take a look at B. It's the second fourth. So you might write 2/4, and I believe this is how your book, yes, this is how your book writes it. However, if you notice, B is exactly halfway between 0 and 1. I would also accept the answer of 1/2, okay? But 2/4 is typically how the book shows it at this point in your math career, and it's perfectly acceptable for an answer, okay? So we'll just leave this at 2/4 for now. C, we've got 1, 2, 3. This is the third fourth, so C is 3/4 on the number line. All right, the next type of problem you might see is where you have to draw the number line. It would say, copy this number line on your paper and draw a dot at a couple of points. So here's the number line. Let's see, they have it divided into from 0 to 1. And they have it divided into that many spaces. So as I'm copying it, the first thing I would do in my head is count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I'm going to show you how I draw a tick mark again, because you're going to have to copy this in your paper for some of your homework problems. So from 0 to 1, whenever I'm dividing something into pieces that are not even, I'm not dividing it in half, I'm not dividing it in fourths, I'm not dividing it in sixths. Even numbers, I would start by splitting it in half. But this is an odd number. We're dividing this into 5 equal pieces. So I kind of think about it this way. I start in the middle, but then I tell myself one side is going to be 2 equal pieces and the other side is going to be 3 equal pieces. So I need to give myself more space on one side. So instead of putting a tick mark in the middle, I would do it somewhere like this. And then I take this one and I split it in half. I take this one and I split it in thirds. And as you can see, this one's quite a bit bigger than that. So I don't even do this perfectly most of the time. This one too. I guess I tend to end up with bigger thirds than when I split this side in half. Do the best that you can. You can always erase your tick marks and go back and try to make it better. So that's a much better job that I just did. Usually after you make your first mistake, you're able to make it a lot more even when you try again. So there's my 5 equal spaces. Then it wants us to draw a dot that represents the point 2/5. So I know that this is fifths because I counted them and then I drew the 5 equal pieces. I need to find 2/5. So I start at 0 and I count 2. That's 1/5. This right here is going to be 2/5. And then they also want us, oh, I almost wrote thirds. They also want us to label the fraction under the point 2/5. All right, the next example is where they have a number line with just arrows pointing. And this one is where we get into the mixed numbers. So let me show you how that works. They start with 5, then they have a 6, then they have a 7. So this is just your typical number line with whole numbers, right? But then they've divided it further with more tick marks. So when I'm counting to find my denominator, I need to count how many spaces, right? But I only need to count the spaces between each whole number. So I'm not going to count all of these. I'm just going to look at 5 to 6 and say, how many spaces do I have between 2 whole numbers? So I've got 1, 2, 3, 4. So it takes 4 spaces to make 1 whole. So here we've got I'm just going to write it in words. We've got the number line divided into fourths, right? So here's the problem that you would see in your book. They would have an arrow pointing right here, and they want you to write the mixed number that is represented by this point. So here's how we do mixed numbers. When it was 0 to 1, we don't worry about having a whole number because it's between 0 and 1. We haven't hit any whole numbers yet. But here, this arrow is between 6 and 7. So think about this like you're traveling along a number line. You start at 0. Here, I'll go over here. Start at 0. And you're traveling. Maybe we could say these are miles. So I hit here. Whew, I'm tired. I've just run 5 miles. But I keep going. Oh, I get to the 6. I've gone 6 whole miles, but I stop right here. Have I gotten to 7 miles yet? No, I've gotten to 6. So my whole number is going to be a 6. And then I've gone a little bit further than 6. I've just gone this fraction. And we already determined that these are fourths, and I've gone 1/4 past the 6. So this mixed number would be 6 and 1/4. Let me give you another one that's similar to that. Okay, here we have 9 11, and 12. And they're divided like this. And the arrow is pointing right there to this mark here. So, first thing, we're going to figure out how many pieces each one is broken up into. So I can start here, go from 9 to 10 and say 1, 2, 3. Oh, this is thirds. So we'll have to figure out this fraction, but before we get there, let's look at what whole number we're at. We start over here on the left, travel, 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 travel. We were at 9, now we're at 10. Do we get to the 11 before we stop here at the arrow? Nope, we haven't hit 11 yet, so it's 10. 10 is our whole number. Then we have to figure out the fraction. So starting at 10 and going to here, how many thirds do we have? 1, 2, so 10 and 2 thirds is our answer. Okay, I'm going to have a couple lesson practice problems for you where I want you to tell me the fraction or the mixed number. So we'll start with between 0 and 1. Tell me where A is. Tell me what mixed number is at that point. Tell me where B is. And tell me where C is. So go ahead and pause, take a look at these number lines. You just need to write down the fractions. You do not need to copy any of these number lines. When you're ready to see the answers, hit play and we'll go over them together. So starting with A, I can see that I've got 1, 2, 3 equal parts, and A is at the 1, 2, second equal part. So A is 2 thirds. Let's look at this one. I'm right here, so I want to figure out how many equal parts first. 1, 2, 3, 4 equal parts. What's my whole number going to be for this mixed number? Did you say 6? 6 is correct. And then my fraction, it's going to have a denominator of 4 because there's 4 equal parts. And I'm at the 1, 2, 3, the third fourth there with that arrow. Let's look at B. How many equal parts? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 spaces, 5 equal parts. So my denominator will be a 5. B is at the first equal part. And look, 3 and 4, this isn't just a fraction, it's a mixed number. So what should my whole number be here? Have I hit the 4 yet? No, I'm still at 3. So 3 and 1/5. Okay, and then our final practice problem here. Again, mixed number, let's count the equal parts. 1, 2, 3, 4 parts to get from 9 to 10. So my denominator will be a 4. My whole number, I've passed the 9, I've passed the 10, I haven't quite made it to the 11. So 10 will be my whole number. And then C here is at the 1, 2, second notch. past the 10. So we have 10 and 2/4. If you recognize that C is halfway between the 10 and the 11, and you wrote 10 and 1/2, that would also be correct. All right, ladies and gentlemen, that's the end of your lesson. Now it's time to do your written practice, which begins on page 263. Have a great day. I will see you again soon.